Funny enough, I wanted to be a pilot. I was born in Gweru, a small town in Zimbabwe. That was in 1982, June 1982. So I'm the middle child in a family of three boys. Funny enough, I wanted to be a pilot when I was growing up, but then I stumbled upon this scientific book that my father was. My father was into fixing electronics, and I fell in love with science. I wanted to be an animal geneticist, but then I ended up falling in love with plants. It was my master's supervisor who actually got me interested in science, in plant science, in apples and apple genetics. I always envisioned myself as an animal geneticist. I did animal genetics at honors at college, and I fell in love with it. But then my supervisor, my master's and PhD supervisor, got me interested in apple genetics, and I fell in love with plant genetics from there on. I did an honors in animal genetics, and then went on to do masters and PhD in biotechnology, focusing on apple genomics and genetics. That led me to then work on Norway spruce genetics, which is what I really enjoyed doing in Sweden, and then ended up coming to work with RAGT. I am currently a serial geneticist with RAGT, based in Ingleton, the UK, focused mainly on wheat and barley genetics and genomics, doing most of the computational work on genetics and genome analysis for barley and wheat for the research group. But this also encompasses working on a variety of cereals, including oats, triticale, rye, and all the other cereals that the group works on. I started working in RAGT in 2019 April, which was one of the best years ever for my scientific career, because I'd always wanted to work with breeders. I'd been in academia all my life, so I really enjoyed the transition to work in practical breeding. One of the main challenges I faced as a black bioinformatician geneticist is that there are very few of us in the field. And every time you introduce yourself as a bioinformatician or a geneticist at any gathering, you face skeptics. So at every turn you have to prove yourself. You have to prove what you've done, what you're doing. And even if you prove that, it leaves a lot of doubt in people's minds. But the good thing that I've had since moving to RAGT was that I've had a very supportive bosses, if I may say, and mentors that have made sure that my record speaks for itself, and they have stood by my decisions. They've promoted me. They've promoted my credentials. When we got to meetings, they've kept me involved, and they've been very supportive in leading my name recognition. And the other challenge was that I'd never worked in cereals. So cereals are a very close community. If you haven't worked in cereals, getting into that community, it's almost like you need someone to validate and vouch for you. So my boss has been brilliant at doing that, letting me have my own voice within the community and letting me introduce myself to the community. And it's getting there. The community is getting to a point of recognition. And I'm getting to a point where I can actually go out there and do my own work within the community. So it's a challenge, but we are getting there. That's when it comes to role models in black science, it's almost a desert out there. I have personally, I have never gotten to to interact with anyone that I could call a role model, until I got into with genetics. And one of the people that I now really admire, there are several in fact. There's Christopher Wawi, who was at JIC. There is Richard Summers, and there's Chris Pett. These are some of the people that I've seen as role models. They might not be black, but they've certainly gone out of their way to promote black plant scientists to achieve some of the goals that they need to achieve, especially in the cereals a space where they are actually working and promoting people of color to actually get into that space, which is dominated by non-blacks, if I might say so. My motivation stems from actually wanting to translate the work that I do. I've worked mostly in bioinformatics with academia, and then would pass on the results to breeding companies or breeding groups. I never got to see the end result of what I worked in academia. So transitioning into actually a practical breeding platform that motivates me to actually see the end goal of what I have done computer-wise being implemented in a practical breeding program, and actually seeing a variety getting to market or to farmers that I know I've put an input into. That really motivates me, and I like that value chain as a scientist. Well, advice to my younger youth would be get into bioinformatics early. Focus on your computing and computing knowledge early on in your career, because everything we're doing now in science, I believe you need to have a higher level of computing and computing knowledge. Favorite part in my job is interacting with fellow scientists. I love talking to other scientists and getting to know what they are doing, what sort of platforms they're implementing. That gives me this challenge to try and implement new ideas. So I love that a lot. I would actually like to see myself in a position where I would have a group of scientists that I mentor, that I lead in 5 years' time, having gathered all this knowledge and this experience in the cereals platform, and have a lot more black scientists, especially in the cereals breeding environment, and mentor them to a point where I can say that they are fully matured scientists. It also comes with the territory that we need new breeders, and we need new bioinformaticians, which are black bioinformaticians in a space which is dominated by non-blacks. It would really fill my heart with joy to see other fellow black scientists moving into that space. My last word would be, you shouldn't be afraid to transition into plant science. It doesn't have a lot of money, but it's a space which actually brings a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment in terms of what you do as a scientist.